Today I'm going to present to you all the pros and cons of every season in Croatian coast, so if you're planning a holiday or vacation here outside the peak season, whether in spring or autumn or maybe even in winter, or if you're simply considering moving here like I did last year, then I invite you to watch today's video. We'll start as usual with the advantages of summer, but you, on the other hand, already know all these summer perks very well because you usually come here in the summer for your holidays or vacations. This year, or rather last year, August had 3 rainy days, which according to the locals is actually quite a high number of rainy days overall. But still, the stable summer weather in Croatia is something we love about this country and one of the reasons why we enjoy coming here for vacation. Another advantage of summer related to this is generally the long days. Long days encourage exploration. On long days, you feel like discovering something new, like going on a longer trip. When the days are short, it feels a bit different. Personally, I don't like going on trips somewhere when it's very late, when it's already evening, when it's already dark. And summer simply encourages exploration, encourages an active lifestyle. Even if it's hot, those long summer days are, for me personally, a really big advantage of living here in the summer. The last advantage for me, in my honest and personal opinion, since I'm trying to present approximately speaking 3 pros and 3 cons for each season, is that cities in general are full of life. So if you enjoy that vibe and atmosphere where cities are alive with energy and excitement, where things are interesting, a bit more fun, and there's entertainment aplenty, then in the summer you'll find concerts happening regularly along with barbecues being hosted frequently, plus all kinds of events taking place right here. It's really pleasant, there's a holiday-like atmosphere, and that's why we also just relax. Even I, as more of an introvert, like it when something is happening during that time. Of course, not too much, but those are the 3 biggest advantages of summer. And when it comes to the downsides, this is just my personal opinion. It's just too hot for me. Temperatures above 30 degrees or even approaching 30 aren't really something I enjoy. I prefer an optimal range of up to 27 degrees, and I feel best somewhere between 23 and 27. And here in Croatia, especially in Dalmatia, as you probably know, temperatures can reach even 35-40 degrees, so it's just too hot for me. Another downside of summer in Croatia is naturally, as you might expect, the tourist season, the holiday season, and there are simply too many people here. I know that just a moment ago I said there's a lot going on here, and that's definitely true and exciting, but when you actually live here day in and day out, the experience shifts a bit. From the perspective of someone who lives here year-round, summer can be incredibly exhausting. And that's mainly because so many people come here for their holidays. What feels like energy and vibrance to visitors can quickly become overwhelming for locals. The biggest downside of summer, without a doubt, is closely tied to this influx of tourists and the peak holiday season. The roads get very congested. Besides the fact that even when driving to Croatia, especially on weekends or leaving it, the highways get terribly jammed, be prepared in general for crazy traffic on the highways because the toll booths just can't keep up since every car has to stop, pay the fee, and so on and so on. So in general, the cities are indeed very crowded. The cities are extremely congested, not only the expressways, but also local roads, very often like the Adriatic Highway, are simply jammed, which affects transportation and just sightseeing in general. If you decide to go sightseeing by car or bus, then unfortunately, you just have to accept that this is how things are here. All right, let's move on to the next season. Still very stable weather. That's one of my favorite advantages of autumn, actually. When it comes to autumn, this weather stability is indeed truly remarkable and great because we don't really experience the kind of typical autumn we know from other places such as Poland. Maybe only around November does it start to feel that way. So there are still plenty of sunny days. It's still very warm, very pleasant indeed, and you can often still walk around in a t-shirt or in a short-sleeved shirt. That's definitely really nice, especially if you're planning not just an off-season vacation here, but also considering living here long-term, because autumn remains simply pleasant in this place. Another advantage of autumn related, among other things, to the weather is the warmest sea. The sea reaches its highest temperatures then, as it has been heated up over the summer months. But it's not just directly and intricately related to the water temperature itself, but also in fact, to something I talk about more as a contrast, as the difference we actually feel when entering the water compared to the air temperature. The sea often has a similar temperature, so when you go into the water, you don't feel that shock of, oh wow, after being warmed by the sun, it's suddenly very, very cold in the water. No, you don't really feel much of a difference because your body maintains a steady temperature and is already used to the surrounding air. So when you enter the water or come out of it, you don't get that sudden shock or feel like you're being hit by a wave of heat after leaving the cooler water. That's definitely an added benefit. And the last advantage, for example, my favorite one in the fall is, among other things, the fact that there are fewer and fewer tourists. What I mentioned earlier about the downsides of summer is actually confirmed by the fact that it's pleasant when there are fewer tourists, but at the same time there's no, sense of abandonment, like everything is dead in the off season. There's still something going on, some people are still around. So traveling to smaller towns like Brela, which are still touristy, doesn't yet carry the risk that nothing will be happening there. So there will still be something pleasant going on, and you don't get that feeling of being completely alone or that it's become really unpleasant. As for the downsides of autumn, unfortunately, we also have to talk a bit more about the weather here. The second half of September can already be very unstable. It can be windy, it can be rainy, so you should expect things like the Bora or even the Yugo winds. It can be extremely unpleasant indeed, although the temperatures are still quite high. So it's not like you're going to freeze here at all. So really, if you're used to October in Poland, then autumn in Croatia probably won't surprise you at all either. On the other hand, though, another downside, also related directly indeed to tourists, is this very sudden end of what we call the so-called high season. Last year, it literally happened on just about exactly the very last day of September, when practically overnight, with first turn towards bad weather, all those restaurants suddenly closed. Practically only the local places remained open, those typical tourist spots closed off. So this might come as a shock to many of you if you come here, especially in October or even November, that these restaurants, even in a big city like Split, where I'm recording this video today, can still be closed. Simply because there isn't enough turnover. If I may put it bluntly, there just aren't enough people in the restaurants to justify keeping them open. So unfortunately, that's another downside. And the third downside related to autumn is also connected to the restaurants that, despite everything, are still open. What do I mean? Let me explain. The menu can vary. What you get in summer or late spring, early autumn can be one thing, and then it can turn into something completely different. And for example, you get the menu at a restaurant and say, I'd like this, but the waiter tells you, sorry, we don't serve that outside of the season anymore. And it's not just related to, for example, the seasonal availability of ingredients needed to prepare a specific dish, but simply because no one really sees the need to keep the full menu available all year round anymore, especially when customer demand drops significantly outside the main tourist season. And in turn, even many restaurants that normally serve food during the season switch to more of a cafe-style mode where you can only have coffee or a drink, or maybe not even a drink. Many places simply offer coffee and nothing else. It's still kind of surprising to me, but I like Croatian coffee, so I can't complain. I've really come to like winter in Croatia. And again, the first advantage in winter will of course be something related to the weather, but it's hard not to talk about the weather when we're considering each season in winter. When it comes to weather-related advantages, the most important one is still the relative stability of the weather. Of course, it's still relatively warm. Naturally, there are windy periods and rainy periods as well, but it's warm. In December, it was 16 degrees last year, and that was probably even the average temperature. Right up until the end of December, it was still quite pleasant for many days, although of course there were far fewer sunny days, which might not always be obvious to someone visiting Croatia outside of the tourist season, because usually it's sunny there. I expected it to be sunny all the time, and that's obviously not true. However, it's a really nice feeling because I actually like winter here, since winter practically doesn't exist here. Well, this winter might have felt like a classic one with temperatures around minus something, and the perceived temperature being minus something, but that lasted for only 2 weeks. And most importantly, there's no snow. Okay, there was snow in the mountains for about 2 or 3 weeks. I even saw the snow-covered mountains of Dalmatia right from the window of my apartment. Another advantage of winter is that there's still a lot of greenery. Okay, now it's green in a very spring-like way, but even in winter, there's still a lot of greenery. The grass grows normally, maybe not in such an active, very intense way like in spring or summer, but the grass is still green. Palm trees really lift your mood. You go outside somewhere and there are green palm trees. In some places even winter flowers or something like that are blooming. It's really pleasant here, so there's definitely a bit of a disconnect when you come here, for example, in December or January, and it feels like it's still, I don't know, autumn or something like that. The last advantage of winter is this overall sense of calm, a really nice moment here in Croatia that I really enjoy. It's like you're taking a break from the busy season because autumn is already over, everyone has already left. Even those who came here in the autumn just to stay for a short period of time or to live, whether for vacation or a holiday, it doesn't matter. There's this particular moment when everything feels sleepy, and you can very easily notice it among the Croats living here too, that they also seem to take advantage of this calm because a lot of people here work in tourism, and I think they also deserve a break, especially when for several months of the year they work 14 to 16 hours a day. That's definitely not something pleasant or relaxing. So here winter is a time of quiet, a natural moment of calm while waiting for spring, and it's really wonderful. And what about the downsides? Weather forecasts are very rarely accurate. It can really happen that the forecast says it will be sunny and instead it turns out to be rainy. The forecast says it will be a week of rain and instead it's a week of sunshine. So if you're planning a vacation in the winter, and this is a very important drawback specifically related to winter here, if you're thinking about visiting Croatia off-season and you're seriously considering winter, then remember not to rely on weather forecasts at all. The weather in Croatia during winter is what it is, and it will be what it will be. That's all that can be said about it. Because people are used to the sun. Well, it's not here right now, but that's not the issue. Because of that habit, winter can feel very depressing. I've said many times in my earlier videos that Croats are truly a nation of the sun. They love it when the sun is out, when it shines, even in winter when you don't really feel like it's warming you or anything. But still, it can actually be quite depressing because you might think, all right, I'll go to the sea and enjoy the winter seaside. And of course, there's something to that, and it works for a while, but only for a while. At some point, though, you realize that even just a few days without sunshine can throw you into a serious slump, a real low, and that, of course, is contagious. I completely understand the Croatians. Visiting popular places where you usually spend your holidays or vacations, like, I don't know, Brela, well, maybe not Makarska, but Brela or somewhere like Premošten, can be a very depressing experience in the winter when you go there, and apart from a few locals sneaking around quietly in the background, you barely see anyone. It really feels depressing. I visited Brela in December as far as I remember. Maybe I'll do a video about it on my channel. Feel free to check it out later. And at first I was really impressed by that feeling of emptiness, that the whole beach was practically mine with maybe just someone fishing at most, and that was it. At first it was nice, but as I walked along the promenade in Brela, I quickly realized that the atmosphere we love in spring and summer in Croatia, when that atmosphere is missing, then it very quickly becomes incredibly depressing. And that is a downside of wintering here. Something to keep in mind for those who, like me, are planning to live in Croatia or visit this place during the winter. This is the last such drawback. This is already the fourth downside, and it was supposed to be just 3. Sorry, it's the lack of central heating pretty much everywhere. In my apartment building where I live, there is absolutely no central heating. Okay, there are radiators, but they're not used, so there's no active central heating. The housing cooperative likely stopped it due to high costs or mild winters, I'm not sure. But you should know that when the windy season hits, it gets really cold in Croatia with strong winds, and the walls don't keep the warmth in well. And this year, yes, already this year in January, I had 15 degrees in the bedroom, and you might say, oh, that's healthy to sleep in, you just need to pull up the duvet. Well, I did sleep under a duvet, and it's a good thing I had it, because otherwise I think I would have frozen to death. That it's healthy and all that, yes. I'm not denying that it might be healthy, but it's uncomfortable. When, for example, you spend practically 24 hours a day in this apartment during the winter because, say, you work from home, okay, I do have an electric heater and all, but that in turn generates high costs when it comes to electricity bills. So it's not exactly a great solution either. Well, either way, I turned on that heater last winter, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 times just to warm up a bit temporarily. But the lack of central heating, yes, that's definitely one of the biggest downsides of spending the winter here. When it comes to the pros and cons of spring, I think that's probably my favorite topic, especially because this spring is already within my reach here. As for what is probably my favorite advantage of spring, it's the beautiful mix of the scent of the sea, a beautiful blend of sea aromas and flowers, and some herbs that are just starting to grow. It's something you're very familiar with when you come here in the summer, but in spring it's still so subtle. It's not yet so overwhelming that you absolutely and immediately sense it from every direction, but you can truly appreciate the details, notice them here and there, simply pick it all up with your nose, and it's really, well, it's really indeed pleasant, as you can see for yourselves here. As for the next advantage, it's once again related to the weather. It's already really sunny. The weather has been fairly stable since the beginning of May. March can be unpredictable, it can get hot, but it can also be very cold. Today, to be honest, the weather isn't particularly great. I'm wearing 3 layers, especially because it's windy, and even though the sun is shining, the temperature is only around 12 degrees. But April can already be quite warm, although still windy. And May, on the other hand, brings real stability. I remember that when I came to Croatia last year at the beginning of May, okay, it could rain a little, but it was really light. It was more like a warm drizzle, let's say, and it lasted, I don't know, 20 minutes or so, and then the sun would come out, so it was really very pleasant. So this weather stability is something I really, truly, and absolutely love about Croatia in the spring. Another advantage is the delightful emerging holiday-like vibe. You can truly sense the tourist season approaching with a gentle, welcoming energy. From late April through May, visitors start arriving gradually, yet Croatia retains a serene, intimate, and personal charm, far from the summer crowds. These elements combine to create an absolutely perfect and ideal moment to explore this breathtakingly wonderful country. It seems to me that most Poles choose to visit Croatia outside of the peak season in the fall rather than in the spring. But I'll be honest with you, come here in the spring and you'll be truly satisfied. I guarantee it. Spring can't be only beautiful, so I've got some downsides of spring for you, but I've only come up with 2 because I spent a long time trying to think of a third one, and honestly nothing came to mind, so maybe spring really is my favorite season after all. Exactly. The beginning of spring is a crazy mix of weather. Today, for example, in the morning, and it's the end of March as I'm recording this, the perceived temperature was 0 degrees. When the wind blows with temperatures around 3 or 4 degrees above zero in the morning, it can simply feel freezing. It can be very windy, it can rain heavily, and there have already been storms. The first real storm this year was, if I remember correctly, sometime at the beginning of March or maybe even at the end of February. So this mix of weather conditions is actually even more intense in spring, especially in the first half of spring, than it is in winter. Paradoxically, I think winter was more stable in terms of weather. I know it might be hard to believe, but that's really how it was. So here, of course, I'm comparing it to the first half of spring, not the second half, which is already really pleasant. But now the last downside, the final drawback of spring, and also the last one in this video. Well, unfortunately, I must say it straight. Indeed, more and more tourists, and you know I absolutely complain about that in almost every single video. If you're a new viewer here and you enjoyed the video, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel Life in Croatia, where I talk about everyday life in Croatia, because it's in Croatia that I'm currently living and sharing various aspects of it with you. So I warmly encourage you to subscribe because there will be even more content about Croatia. And I also recommend checking out the older videos. In the meantime, thank you all very much for today. I met with you in beautiful Split with a view of the island of Čiovo, a view of the island of Brač, a view of the island of Hvar, where I'll be heading soon, and there will also be content from that island. I sincerely hope you truly enjoyed the entire video, and of course, please leave a big thumbs up and a thoughtful comment about which particular season seems absolutely perfect for you to spend your vacation and holidays, even if it is during the summer. That's totally understandable, just write it down too. Bye!